Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date is January 3rd, 17th edition. Folks, I've been teasing this for a while. I've been trying to work and get this guy on for weeks, and we finally have him. College basketball insider, founder of Field of 68 podcast, Jeff Goodman is our guest today. Goody, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
No, thanks for having me, James. I know you've been trying, and I've been down here busy eating in Charleston. So, listen, I get out of Boston for a reason. The weather's not good. I got one kid in college, so we can go anywhere we want. So we head south and do a lot of good dinners in Charleston.
Hey, listen, one thing Coach likes to do is eat. So I'm going to have to join you down in Charleston at some point. So here's how we're going to do it, folks. I wanted to bring in Jeff because I really feel like when it comes to college basketball, there's no better mind that's going to understand and really give you, what he feels handicapping going through leagues. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through about 7 or so leagues, and I'm going to really just throw it to Jeff and he's going to give you his pick to win the regular season title in each league, maybe some value plays. And if we have time, we'll do Final Four picks for Jeff, and we'll do his national championship, and maybe time for a sleeper, a team that's under the radar that you may not be thinking about right now that may be worth a value play. Let's get started right away. To the American, with the new team on the block, Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic comes into today at plus 175 on BetMGM as the favorites to win the American, followed by Penny Hardaway and Memphis at 2-1, SMU 6-1, and then we're not going past there, Goody, because now we're talking 30-1. We're talking long shots. So in your opinion, Jeff, looking at FAU coming into the league, do you think FAU is the favorite and should be the favorite to win the American, and why?
I think it's a 2-horse race, and it's wide open between those two right now. And I wouldn't have said that a week or 2 weeks ago, but after watching FAU lose at Florida Gulf Coast about a week ago, and I love these kids. I was down in Boca for a few days. I saw them in New York, and Jimmy V lose to Illinois. I love Elijah Martin and Nelly Davis. I just think what they miss is what Memphis has, which is a big wing. And Memphis has it in David Jones. And Memphis has their starting lineup is basically all guys that are on their third school. So they're all old dudes. Florida Atlantic brought back their whole team, James, but they're not quite as old and grizzled as this Memphis team. So I'm going to go with FAU only because they know how to win. They beat Memphis in the NCAA tournament last year. They got to the Final Four. So I think at the end of the day, I trust them, game on the line. But I think, unfortunately for them, I think they're learning how to be the hunted instead of being the hunter, which is what they were. FAU's always been.
And I think I agree with you with that, with FAU, with experience. Remember, folks, if I'm not mistaken, FAU first round, 1-1. So that could be a big difference in both of those schools with the fact that FAU and Dusty May got that first round win. And you are right about the experience of a team like Memphis, bringing in these guys back, bringing in Javon Quinterly, who's on his third school. Naquan Tomlin just got there from Kansas State. So they do have some experience. And I think Jeff makes a good point, folks. Experience is key once you get down to business of big-time matchups. That's why you see teams with experience seem to make deeper runs than teams that are loaded with one-and-dones. Let's move off the American, and let's go to the Blue Bloods, a lot of them. And the ACC, right now, Duke and Carolina, both at plus 250 on BetMGM. Clemson, also at plus 250, off to a great start this year. Miami, a team that I love that's been up and down. Let's see how they do as they get in the conference play at 8-1. And then Virginia, who some people think have underachieved so far, at 10-1, along with Wake Forest. Jeff, in your mind in the ACC, who do you like to win the conference?
So I know I picked Carolina, and I'm already changing my mind after a couple days here because I saw Tyrese Proctor last night for Duke, and he came back from that injury, and I think to get him back, he played well last night. he's got high upside. He's got something that nobody else has, which is a big 6'5" guard he's got NBA moves. He makes people better. And while he was out, Jared McCain has really been terrific. The freshman guard can score from all three levels. You got Filipowski down low. You got Jeremy Roach. There's just kind of that veteran. I think it's Duke Carolina at the end of the day, and then Clemson will finish third. But ultimately, I just feel like when it's close like this, I'm going with a team with pros, with NBA guys. And I think both Tyrese Proctor and Kyle Filipowski are both NBA players. And Jared McCain could be. I don't know who that pro is for North Carolina. I'm not sure they have one. They got a bunch of good players. They've RJ Davis has played like an All-American. Baycott hasn't been great this year. And then they threw in, some transfers. Harrison Ingram from Stanford's been really good. Cormac Ryan's been good from Notre Dame. So they're older. But I just think the upside and the fact that Duke's going to get better and better as the season goes along because they've got McCain as a freshman, Proctor, who, again, really struggled out of the gates. And I think he and McCain are going to be really good together once they figure it out.
And that's important because sometimes when you have teams with experience, the young guys that come in can be that linchpin that can get you over the hump. Obviously, Tyrese Proctor last night versus Syracuse with 14 points and 4 assists. So they will be a big addition. And Duke, with 3 guys that could score or more, I think that could be the difference. And the thing about Armando Bacot is sometimes these bigs, they stay in college for a reason for so long. I think at times when Bacot goes against these bigger, more athletic centers, sometimes he does tend to struggle. Speaking of big men, let's move on. And let's go to the Big 12 with another new team on the block. And finally, you can stop talking about Kelvin Sampson and playing in the American and now playing teams because he has taken his team to what I think is the best league in college basketball, and that's the Big 12. Houston checks in today on BetMGM plus 225 to win the Big 12, followed by Kansas at plus 275 with their Hunter Dickinson transfer. How about another new team in the league, BYU? Not a lot of people talk about BYU. 4-1. Baylor just opened up their new arena last night, 7-1. And then you got Iowa State, sleeper team, teachers and coaches, you know what off, at 10-1. And then you still are looking at teams like Texas and TCU, folks. Think about this. Texas and TCU are 20-1. That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. If Kansas isn't number one, remember, they've owned this league for forever now. Last I checked, Bill Self can still coach. Last I checked, Hunter Dickinson's still probably the second or third best player in college basketball right now. The key for Kansas, and my concern, is in the NCAA tournament because they don't shoot the ball well. I don't think that's going to affect them in terms of the regular season. They're going to win enough games with their defense. They've got great defenders. DeJuan Harris is an elite point guard who guards. Kevin McCullough's elite. KJ Adams is a great defender. They just don't have great perimeter shooters, but they'll find a way to grind out these wins. And again, I'm not betting against them. BYU, it's like throwing money away at 4-1. Like literally throwing it away, James. It's Kansas or Houston for me, and I'll go with Kansas because, again, you just don't bet against the Jayhawks to win the Big 12 regular season title. You just don't.
And I agree with you. And if you look at it, and I think Houston could still make a deep run in March because it's so hard to prepare for Kelvin Sampson's team because they guard you at shoot-around. They guard you in the locker room. They guard you from the bus. Whenever they want to start guarding you. But the key with Kansas, folks, you want to watch down the line is particularly the three-point shooting. McCullough is shooting at 37.7%. He's got to be there. Obviously, Harris is shooting the ball well. But a guy like a Timberlake, the transfer, only shooting it right now 27% from three. If there's an Achilles heel for Kansas, it is the deep ball. And when you get into half-court basketball in March, it's going to take, folks, guard play becomes very, very important. Speaking of guard play, let's go to the Big Ten with Purdue, the favorites at minus 200. Why? Maybe people don't think the Big Ten is very good. Teams are not playing well. We'll get to that in a second. But Purdue, minus 200. Wisconsin at 8-1. Michigan State, top 5 in the nation preseason. Izzo's at 12-1. Illinois, we're not going to go into their issues they have, but they're 14-1 right now. Indiana 16-1, along with Ohio State. I'm in Jersey, so I don't even know what Steve Peichel and Rutgers is because I don't even see the odds. But I assume that Jeff's not going to pick Rutgers
next year.
He may pick them next year, but not now. But Purdue, minus money. Jeff, they got to be the pick in the Big Ten, correct?
Yeah, and they are. I mean, listen, you take Purdue there. Because again, the big boy Zach Edey's a force. Nobody can handle him. He's a National Player of the Year a year ago for a reason. He's going to win it again this year unless he gets hurt. But the difference maker is Braden Smith, their point guard. He's been so much more aggressive, looking for his own. In ball screen now, he comes off it, and instead of being passive and maybe throwing it into Zach Edey, he's out there to shoot, and he's making them. And Fletcher Lawyer's been good for the most part, a little up and down, and they got a transfer in Lance Jones from Southern Illinois, who's fearless. Doesn't make always a ton of shots, but he is not scared, and he can guard and give him an athletic defender on the wing. The only other thing that looks intriguing to me is anytime you give me Tom Izzo to win the Big Ten at, plus 1,200, like, all right, like, I think about it. Now, again, like you said, they're preseason top 5. They're horrible out of the gates. They've started to figure it out a little bit lately, right? They smacked Baylor in Oakland a couple of weeks ago. So I kind of like them, but do I think they're going to win the Big Ten? No, but I would sprinkle a little bit on that number is intriguing to me.
And that's interesting because you know the phrase January, February, Izzo, April. So you know when it gets down to it, Tom Izzo will get Izzo with his team to play. And I think you make a really good point, Jeff, about Purdue. My problem with Purdue last year was they were so young in the backcourt, a year older, a year wiser. And you're right. The game that really turned me was Braden Smith in the second half versus Alabama. He just at that point came off the ball screen and he let it loose. And if he's able to hit that ball screen, and folks, it's not very hard. It's a high ball screen or a pin down. You roll Big Zach Edey in the middle of the lane, throw it to him, over the left shoulder, jump hook, game over. So if you got Smith that now can knock down threes, and he's shooting at 49% from three so far this year at 12.4 points per game, and big games in big spots, that could be a lethal 1-2 punch. But you're right. Izzo at 12-1 is always worth a couple of dollars. Let's move on to my neck of the woods. And that's the Big East. And the Big East is led by UConn, the defending national champions, the UConn Huskies that beat everybody by double digits. Who beats everybody seems like by double digits. They do have a couple of losses this year. Obviously, shout out to my guy Shaheen Holloway and my good friend Ryan Whalen at Seton Hall. They knocked them off, but we can talk about that. Could be the Klingon injury, which could be a factor in Jeff's decision here. UConn plus 180 tied with Marquette. What a job Shaka Smart has done there. Texas was never the right fit, folks. He's back home where he belongs, and he's doing a great job. Villanova, oh my God, you've heard me cuss this team out. Well, they're starting to figure it out a little bit. Plus 275. Creighton, another team that may have underachieved, but with Shireman and Kalkbrenner, you can't count them out. 7-1. And Kim English has done a great job in its first year, taking over for Ed Cooley at 10-1. Jeff, Big East, who do you think is the favorite? Who would you put your money on to win the Big East regular season title?
So I'm going to go with Marquette, but mostly because I'm worried about the big boy Donovan Clingan at UConn. If he's healthy, I'm taking UConn. But foot issues and big men, 7-footers who weigh 270 plus pounds, that scares the hell out of me. And Clingan was hurt in the preseason with a foot injury. He's been hurt throughout he's out now. Played through some foot injuries. He's now out for a couple weeks. And I just don't know if we're ever going to see a healthy Donovan Clingan this year. So Marquette, to me, has the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart. They just need another dude to step forward, a consistent number 3 guy. Oso's been good in the middle, but he's been a little up and down. So I like Marquette, but again, a lot of it is based on the fact that I just don't have confidence we're going to see a healthy Donovan Clingan when it matters most.
And I think that's important. For me, one team to look at, I can't throw away Creighton yet. At 7-1,
they just can't guard. They can't guard other than Kalkbrenner.
And I think that's the thing. Losing who they lost in the portal really hurt there, because those were the two, especially number 8, they're two most athletic guys. And I think that could be the thing, because teams, as though he's shooting at getting 18.6 points per game, teams are going at Shireman and Kalkbrenner a little bit, because they're not as aggressive as they are defensively. And it should be interesting, because and I know, Jeff, the Big East, I mean, this may not be the 80s Big East, but it's ultra competitive, and you have to bring it on the defensive end of the floor if you're going to give yourself a chance. Now, let's go to the Pac-12, because I want to talk about this, because I've watched the Pac-12 not as much as I could, because, Coach sometimes I got to get into bed a little early at night, so I miss some of these games.
Yep.
But right now, the Pac-12, Arizona, -140, was playing great, number 1 team in the country. Well, they just got picked off by 20 at Stanford, and they've had 2 losses in the last couple weeks, obviously losing to FAU in a barn burner a couple of Saturdays ago. Colorado, 4-1. Utah, +650. Oregon, 9-1. And are you ready for this, folks? USC, with Isaiah Collier and Boogie Ellis and Bronny James, is at 14-1. And then UCLA, which people were not crazy about Mick Cronin leaving Cincinnati to go there, has done a great job, but this year's been tough. 19-1 for UCLA. Jeff, who's your pick to win the Pac-12?
I'm going to take Arizona, but I kind of like Colorado at that number, right? +400. Colorado's got maybe the best player in the league right now. KJ Simpson has taken a huge jump. De Silva, really good number 2 dude. And Cody Williams is ultra talented. He'll be a lottery pick. Younger brother of Jalen Williams from Oklahoma City. Long, athletic wing, knows how to play. Great third guy. They've got shooters. Tad Boyle can coach. But ultimately, I still think, it is too, part of it is when it's close for me, home court advantage is so important. And I think McHale Center, and I went to school at Arizona, so went to many games there. It's such a good home court advantage compared to Colorado. Obviously, you've got the elevation at Colorado, but beyond that, it's not like they're diehard fans where it's a huge home court advantage like it is with the fans at McHale. So I'll go Arizona. They got a lot of good pieces. They've struggled lately. I think they'll get it together. Tommy Lloyd's done a great job in the regular season for the last couple of years, for his first couple of years in Tucson. But, man, Colorado could be knocking on that door really and make this thing interesting. When 2 weeks ago, most people thought Arizona was going to run away with this thing, and it would be, Arizona as like a Purdue 2-1 favorite.
And the amazing thing, folks, is this is being recorded January 3rd. It's going to be released tomorrow. Guess who plays tomorrow? Colorado at Arizona. So it's perfect timing here. And you talk about KJ Simpson, folks. Think about this, folks. He's gone from 7.4 to 15.9 to 21.1 points per game. And the biggest thing with KJ is his ability to knock down the three from 25.4 to 27.6 to 47.1%. And you're right about Tad Boyle. And I'll tell you this right now, folks, a lot of you have no idea who this guy is. And people talk about guys like Jimmy Larinaga, that's been a coach for a long time. I mean, I even think about a guy like Mark Schmidt at St. Bonaventure, that people know about as a great coach. Tad Boyle's in that league as great coaches that don't get a lot of respect. And this is a team that with KJ Simpson and De Silva, who, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's De Silva that was at VCU, if I'm not mistaken.
No, different one. He's been there. Yeah, he's been at Colorado, Tristan.
Right, but, still at 15.7 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 2 assists. This team, and listen, they have a crazy environment in Colorado. He's made runs in the Pac-12 tournament before when teams didn't expect it. That could be a good value. And folks, think about this. If Colorado wins tomorrow night at the McHale Center, that line may flip, because that's going to be 2 losses for Arizona, and then obviously Colorado's going to have a win at the McHale Center. So if you're thinking about possibly taking Colorado, you may want to put it in before the game starts because it will move after the game should they win. Let's move on to the SEC, which another team, a league where I feel like there's a bunch of teams that could win it. And honestly, folks, it may come down to how the teams play. Ready for this? On the road rather than they do at home. So let's take a look at Tennessee and Auburn. Auburn wasn't getting the respect maybe that Bruce Pearl should have deserved before the season. They played exceptionally well. They're both at 3-1. Cal, I've talked about in those podcasts. This is as big of a year as it is for Cal because he's got his best recruiting class in a long time. And I mean, he got 2 Jersey kids and Wagner and Bradshaw. So, I'm all super excited about those two. Alabama, 6-1. A&M, Buzz Woods, fight him in a phone booth, 7-1. Arkansas, it's still dangerous at 14-1. Jeff, SEC, who you got as winning the league?
Boy, this is the hardest one because I think it's the most wide open of any of these leagues. You could see any one of these 6 teams coming out and winning the league title, and it wouldn't shock me. I took Kentucky because, again, I think their upside is so high. I love Dillingham. He's electric. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's so tough to stop. He can just kind of generate offense whenever he wants. And Reed Shepherd is the guy that just kind of keeps it all together, right? Another freshman. There we're seeing Antonio Reeves, really good shooter. Your boy DJ Wagner, I'm not as high on him as some are, but, again, if he's your 4th best guard, man, you're pretty good. And Bradshaw is a stud. Could be, to me, I don't know if he'll be the number 1 pick or top 3 pick, but he's got super talent. I'm going to say Kentucky, but I'm going to throw some money on Arkansas at 14-1. They just got Keon Menafield eligible from Washington, transfer. Trevor Brazile, remember, he was out all last year, so he's still kind of finally 100% and shaking some of the cobwebs and the rust off from missing last season due to injury. And then you got Tremont Mark, who's played great basketball, one of the best transfers in the country. We also know, James, his teams always start slow, and they get better because he revamps his entire team with the portal. So I think it's worth it there. Like, that number is it jumps out at me. But again, I think Kentucky, if you're putting a gun in my head, who I think wins it, I would be the Wildcats. But I love Arkansas at 14-1.
And if you think about it, Arkansas is going to be battle-tested. They've already played North Carolina. They've already played Memphis. They've already played Stanford. They've already played Oklahoma. They've played a tough schedule, and you're right about Muss. Son of an NBA coach, so he knows about playing the long game and adjusting. But I will say, I do think Kentucky, Bradshaw's a problem. I mean, he's a big problem, and he covers up a lot of defensive mistakes. And the fact that you could bring a guy like Dillingham off the bench? Like, what are we doing here? This is the year for Cal, and I'm going to say this. Unfortunately for Cal, expectations are sky high in Lexington. If they do not make it to the second weekend in March with this team, if they could buy out Jimbo Fisher at $51, $52 million, I hate to say it, they could buy out Cal at $34-35 million. So that was the SEC. And I think we've gone through all the leagues, and we just got a couple more minutes. I know Jeff's got to go. So I'm going to throw it to Jeff. And based off of what you're thinking today, who is your Final Four?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Purdue because, again, they got the dominant big man who's not a liability like some other plotting bigs are defensively. He moves well. And again, I think, like you said, those freshman guards, Lawyer and Braden Smith, are now sophomores. Marquette, like I said, love their backcourt. Guards win in the tournament. I'll take Tyler Kolek and Cam Jones any day of the week. Kentucky, guards. They got 4 of them. Bradshaw can get up and down the court. He blocks shots. He finishes. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. Trey Mitchell's been a good addition, and now you need him for like 15, 20 minutes because of Bradshaw. And then my kind of roll of the dice is Colorado. Like I said, like them. I think in the final year of the Pac-12, maybe a Pac-12 team finally, gets to the Final Four here again. And I don't know if they're going to win the whole thing for the first time since Arizona did in '97. But I like Colorado. They got some older guys. They got a really good point guard again in Simpson. who's shooting it, as you said, much better than he has in his career. And Cody Williams is coming. He's just got to get healthy. He's still up in the air for whether he's going to play Tad Boyle in the game against Arizona, which I think will be tonight, as your listeners and watchers are going to, viewers are going to watch this this pod.
I mean, think about this, folks. Pac-12 haven't won a championship in that long. If I remember right, I think that was the Miles Simon, Mike Bibby backcourt back in the day when they won a championship for the late Lute Olson. Jeff, two more really quick, because I know where you got to run. You gave us your Final Four. Who is your pick to win the national championship?
Boy, I mean, this has been a tough one for me. I'm going to take Purdue. I'm going to take Purdue to kind of pull a Virginia. You know, Virginia loses to UMBC. They come back the next year. They win the whole thing. That's the blueprint, right? Maybe Matt Painter will do the same thing. He's been getting crucified like Tony Bennett was. And they brought back their entire team for the most part, added a key transfer in Lance Jones. And I think they have it in them to be able to win this whole thing, because now those guys from the perimeter that missed on those uncontested shots a year ago, I think they have the confidence now. I think they just got to get past that first game, right? That first game and the jitters. I remember talking to Virginia, you know, Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy after that game. Gardner Webb was in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was walking with them to the locker room after, and I was saying, you know, how nervous were you? They were like, no, really, really nervous. So Purdue's got to get through that. That's the big one.
All right, two. I actually have two more, because I have to do this because my boss is texting me and he wants to know, what is wrong with Maryland? I'm not trying to. I like Kevin Willard.
Can't shoot.
Hey,
they can't shoot.
And that is the thing. They cannot shoot the ball. And here's the thing that's tough about them. They never play well on the road. If they start losing games at home and then go on the road. So Greg Sussman, my boss, there you go. I've made sure I have
Julian Reese. Listen, Julian Reese, you can't put up an offer. I don't care who you're playing up against. Shaq, whether it's Zach Edey, I don't care who it is. Julian Reese, you're too talented to put an offer up against Purdue. They need him. Jameer Young hasn't been nearly as good as he was a year ago. You know, I think part of it too was a year ago there were no expectations at College Park. You know, Kevin Willard took over. Remember, Mark Turgeon basically quitting the team halfway through the year before, and nobody expected anything from him. Sometimes, again, you know, that's kind of the easiest thing. No expectations. You're loose. This year, come in. A lot of people are expecting them to be a top 25-ish team, contend for, you know, one of the top spots in the Big Ten. And, man, they came out and they just can't make shots.
Listen, you can't make shots, and that's honestly, that's part of been the reason of Michigan State's struggles is you can't make perimeter shots. And when you can't make perimeter shots, I can tell you as a coach, you load up the paint and you get rebounds and you make them pay on the other end. Jeff, last question. You got a team that's a sleeper. The funny thing is, this team hasn't lost a game yet all year, but they're still a sleeper and undervalued. Who is your sleeper team right now to win their league and even, crazy as it sounds, probably won't do it, but maybe worth $1 or $2 to win the national championship?
Well, this guy took Texas Tech to within one basket of winning the national title a few years ago, and that's Chris Beard. And obviously he's had some issues off the court. Otherwise, he'd still be at Texas right now. But I think everybody would agree Chris Beard is about as good of a basketball coach as there is. X's and O's, motivating his players. And now he's got a full complement. You know, he just got Brandon Murray eligible because of the waiver rule, 2-time waiver rule. And he also got Moussa Cisse eligible recently. So that's a scorer and a big man to go along with another big man defensively in Jamarian Sharp. So, you know, Chris Beard finds a way, and he can revamp rosters better than almost anybody, along with like Eric Musselman, right? I mean, he did it at Arkansas Little Rock right away. They got to the tournament in year one, beat Purdue in the NCAA tournament. I was there. He obviously, look at what he did at Texas Tech, Elite Eight national title game appearance. Texas, he had him ready last year. You know, I think they could have been a Final Four team if Chris Beard had still been coaching that team, but he put them together. And Ole Miss has got some talent. Alan Flanagan, Jalen Murray, Brandon Murray, Cisse, Sharp. They got a lot of dudes on this team. So listen, I never put it past Chris Beard, the coach, what he can pull off. So winning the SEC, I would, you know, I said I liked Arkansas at plus 14. 14-1. I like these guys at 25-1, even better.
And think about this, folks, really quick. They go at Tennessee on Saturday, but after that, home Florida, home Vanderbilt, at LSU. Three of, I would say, Florida, middle back, but lower teams of the SEC before they have to go to Auburn on Saturday, January 20. So if you're thinking about it, it will be time to jump in now, because if they win at Tennessee, that thing is going to slice in half, maybe off of one win. I want to thank Jeff Goodman. Thank you for coming on, Jeff. Really quick before I let you go, I want to let people know you will be able to see this on the SportsGrid app right here, where you can get everything, pregame, in-game, post-game, pops, predictions, more from everybody from the SportsGrid family, and even some stuff from Jeff Goodman, who I want to thank for coming on. Remember, folks, Jeff Goodman's one of the best in the business. I'm going to say the best in the business. You can find him on the Field of 68 podcast. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and Instagram. Jeff, it's a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully we can do it again soon before the tournament.
No, thanks for having me, my man. I appreciate it, and look forward to coming on again as we get these things heating up a little bit.
Thanks, Jeff, for coming on, and thank you for listening. This will be released on January 4th. Remember, we got that big game, Arizona versus Colorado, coming up that night, so get your bets in early. Thank you so much to Matt George, my producer, Greg Sussman, for bothering me to make sure that I get his stuff in. And obviously, thank you for all for listening to this podcast, and thanks for Jeff again. Thank you all. Remember, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Take care. Good night. Thank you.